That also included the Oxford Union President-elect George Aberoni, who previously debated Charlie Kirk. And when Charlie Kirk was shot, this guy posted, "Charlie Kirk got shot, let's effing go." He said that in a WhatsApp group. He then posted on Instagram, "Charlie Kirk got shot, LOL." He's now opened up about what was going through his mind when he posted those messages. And he said that it was to get a laugh and to spark a conversation.
You wanted to get a reaction?
Exactly. I wanted to get a reaction. I wanted to have a conversation, and
A laugh?
almost exactly like a laugh and a bit of a reaction. And kind of, I realized afterwards that, that wasn't the right way to go about it.
I mean, it's pretty sick stuff saying he wanted to get a laugh. What do you make of this?
Well, it's the fact that we got not just one of those messages, but two, which clearly showed this wasn't just some flight of fancy or a moment of impulse. He clearly meant what he said, and he doubled down on it. I don't remotely buy the excuse or the justification that he was just having a bit of fun and trying to spur conversation. If anything, that's doing the opposite. You're just going to inflame tensions and make people even angrier, and it's just a completely insensitive thing to say. He is the representative of arguably the most hallowed institution in all of Britain, Oxford University. And whether he likes it or not, he is responsible for that. And he really sullied the name of the university and himself there. And I have to say, it was pretty unforgivable what he ended up doing.
I completely agree. We're just 1 month away now until Zohran Mamdani is sworn in as Mayor of New York City. And you've written a fascinating piece for Unheard about the 60,000 New Yorkers who voted for Donald Trump last year and then Zohran Mamdani this year. And really the message that those voters are sending is that the status quo isn't working. I was also listening to an old interview with Charlie Kirk, actually only from a few months ago, earlier this year, around his thoughts on the rise of Mamdani. And he argued that young voters, if they're voting for him, they're really sending a distress signal, partly due to the economic reality. They've been priced out of the housing market. It's far more expensive for them to get a home than it was for their parents' generation. So this generation is significantly worse off than the generation before them. Many people are relying on buy now, pay later programs for groceries. I mean, not just concert tickets, but actually using buy now, pay later programs for groceries. So it's a huge issue. And look, you've noted there are plenty of voters who are not loyal to anyone. Can you talk to us about what you learned from speaking to these voters?
Right. I think that's exactly right. What you mentioned about the economic conditions at the moment. I mean, we've got a situation where millennials are door dashing $9 burritos, doing the pay now, buy later kind of thing. And it is pretty troubling what's going on over here, especially with the rise of ChatGPT and AI. We're now at something like 25% unemployment rate for college graduates in the white collar space. So yeah, a lot of these are floating in the background. And as you mentioned, I did this piece on the Zohran Mamdani voter, Trump voter phenomenon. There's something like 60,000 of them. I think there are actually probably a lot more than that, but that's the official number. And what I discovered was that there was just a huge dissatisfaction with the status quo as things stand. And they knew that these voters knew that they weren't going to be getting the answer they wanted from the quote unquote establishment, whether they be Republicans or Democrats. That's why they swung so hard from the right over to the left. And I think it's something we're going to see going forward. I think the left-right distinction is breaking down now. We're seeing a populist establishment distinction. And whoever can speak to some of these economic concerns and anxieties that a lot of young people, but also working class, middle class people are feeling, I think they're going to do very well. And this is a really fascinating time in American politics.
Yeah, it certainly is. How will this play into next year's midterm elections? They're less than a year away now, and they're, of course, about as high stakes as election can be.
Right. Well, I have to give credit to Mamdani here. He did, in the early 2020s, his politics were basically a grab bag of BLM nonsense. It was racial identitarianism, it was COVID maximalism, and it was this kind of woke cultural emphasis. Now he was just hammering home the message of economics, economics, economics,
Yeah.
and affordability. And I think the Republicans can take a lesson here. If they want to win or at least recover some of their losses, they have to focus on affordability as an issue. I'm talking about gas prices, electricity bills, grocery bills, and the same lesson goes to the Democrats as well. Whichever party can really seize those issues and prove that they're doing something about it is going to win.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Jasmine Crockett. We love her, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She's fronted the Liberal media to explain why she suggested that Republicans took donations from pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, only it was, of course, a different Jeffrey Epstein. So she went on MSN Now to explain herself, insisting that she didn't mislead anyone at all because she, in fact, clarified. She said, Jeffrey Epstein.
I made clear that there was a Jeffrey Epstein. They knew on the other side that I did not have time to actually pull up and actually research, especially since that particular one that Lee Zeldin got up in an uproar about was specifically out of the New York area. We know that he was out of that area. So, and this obviously was not done post Jeffrey Epstein's life. So I made sure that I said a Jeffrey Epstein.
But you were trying to insinuate that it was the
I absolutely was insinuating that it could be possible. That is true.
James, I'm starting to think that Jasmine Crockett, she might actually like giving train wreck interviews.
There's clearly some kind of sadomasochistic tendency going on here. And I think a part of it might come from the fact that any attention is good attention. And she's clearly learned that apologizing for her mistakes only invites more attention to her other mistakes. So why not just double down on the lie and just go ahead with it? So I think if she becomes the face of the Democratic Party, they are in for a very tough ride in 2026. And I imagine that Republicans will be doing all they can to make her the face of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the final point to be made here is that if you keep giving these car crash interviews, it's going to become synonymous with your name. She's young, it's early on in her career, but she's already becoming so discredited that she's already hurting the brand here. And with the party facing the most pivotal elections in living memory, this could be a crucial moment for them.
Now, we've covered a lot this year, from Trump's inauguration, from Mamdani's win to Greta Thunberg's PR stunts, backfiring spectacularly. But James, I want to get your thoughts reflecting on 2025. We're now at the end of the year almost. And there, of course, have been some wild, wonderful and not so wonderful moments. Looking back, what stands out to you?
I, first of all, have just been stunned by just how much this moment we're in has changed from 2024, 2023 to 2025. The 2024 and before then was the politics of the possible. This is very much the politics of the impossible. Anything you don't expect to happen ends up happening. If Trump wants to annex Greenland, it's going to happen. If Trump wants to take on Canada, it's going to happen. And I think what we saw with the Ukraine-Russia meeting as well, the Ukraine Oval Office meeting was a testament to that. This is as I've mentioned before, the ultimate disruptor. He's willing to shake up the consensus and take on the establishment. And I think that's why he has been so impressive. Now, there have been a lot of shortfalls and a lot of pitfalls, but again, it has just been an absolute roller coaster ride. I think with Biden, you had a kind of managed decline, whereas Trump is going in all directions, and it's been fun to cover and fun to watch.
It has certainly been fun to cover. Very entertaining as well. What about a winner and loser of the year?
Well, the winner, I would have to say, I don't think is particularly well known, but she's probably the most powerful woman people have never heard of, and that's Susie Wiles. She is Donald Trump's chief of staff, and she is basically the second most powerful woman in the office. And what makes Susie so impressive is that she, in a famously turbulent presidency, she has guided the ship all the way through, and not only during the administration, but during his campaign too. And she has been the steady pair of hands, putting those guardrails up for Trump when he needs it, picking the right people for the job, and also just guiding the administration through towards their North Star. She is the safe pair of hands the administration needs, and I guarantee that she will be there at the end of this administration in 2028. As for the loser, I would say I was pretty disappointed with Elon Musk's work in Washington. Now, whether you blame Musk or the bureaucracy he was dealing with is another question, and I think that's a fair point to ask. But on its own terms, those did fail, in my view. They didn't do, notwithstanding a few successes on USAID and things like that, they didn't really achieve much cost cutting or anything to that effect. And I think he left Washington a defeated man. And that really culminated in his bid to launch this America Party that was, didn't even launch. So I would say Elon Musk is probably my loser of 2025.
Yeah, I think that's a fair one. To be honest, I think we all had high hopes for Elon Musk, and then it was a pretty dramatic exit in the end. Now, of course, we cover a lot of crazy meltdowns, a lot of media meltdowns from the leftist media. What about its reporting and what stood out to you this year?
Well, one of the ones that sticks out in memory was Kate Attia. She was a Washington Post columnist, and we were speaking about Charlie Kirk just now, and she just completely fabricated a quote by Charlie Kirk, something to do with how black women have lower IQ or something to that effect, and she was deservedly fired from the Washington Post for that. But instead of just taking it on the chin and accepting it, she then launched this bizarre campaign to try and get herself reinstated. And she said it was a myth that this was a campaign against free speech and that she was raising the profile for black women and the Washington Post were trying to do her down. And as if that wasn't enough, she then posts a picture of herself fully garbed with a rose muzzling her mouth and a picture of a burning scroll of the Washington Post saying censored. It was the most nonsensical thing I've ever seen. A couple of others that stand out, the BBC selectively editing the Trump documentary. You would have thought after all these years it might have learned its lesson. And to this day, we still have not had the minutes from the meeting regarding the reported bias within the institution that came about 8 months ago. So that is pretty disappointing, I have to say. And then I also think this has been a real victory for independent journalists. I mean, my own publication, Unheard, has been able to get a seat at the table at the Oval Office, and it's actually been pretty nice to see. So I think credit to the Trump administration for bringing new voices in there. I don't like what it's doing with the Pentagon and kicking some other voices out, but again, I think this is a very interesting time. We just have to see where it goes from there.
100%. Well, we certainly appreciate your voice, all the work you do at Unheard, and thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.